Cooking in a tiny kitchen is obviously going to be a challenge. We have, maybe a couple square feet of counter space. Our sink is absolutely minuscule, maybe 1 square foot. So you're already at a lot of disadvantages when you start this tiny kitchen cooking. But at the same time, I think that those things can serve to actually improve your cooking a lot. All of that stuff, I think, really combines to make you a much better cook.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have for the first time ever, I have an author coming on to talk about a cookbook. Yay! Like, finally, this is amazing. AJ's on with me today. We're going to be talking about not just an amazing cookbook, but a cookbook that's designed for people living the bus life, a nomadic lifestyle. You know, those are people that we're all jealous about who get to drive wherever they want and like wake up on the beach. Yeah, that's what AJ does. And it's exciting to have AJ here. He's written a cookbook that's designed for small spaces, but not just like making the basics. I'll go through his Instagram, you'll see this is like mouth-watering, amazing recipes here for everyone to check out. AJ, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thanks so much for having me.
Again, my first time ever having a cookbook author on. This is amazing. You're blazing new trails for everyone. This is going to be really fun. Nice to have you here.
Thanks.
So tell me, where are you guys today? Like, because you guys can move around and go anywhere. Tell me where you are right now in the world.
So we are currently in Boulder, Colorado. We just rolled in maybe a week ago.
Nice.
Ayana's family, my partner's family, is from here. So we're here parked in her mom's backyard right in downtown Boulder.
Nice. Amazing. So you guys are completely equipped. You can go anywhere. And what I love watching on your Instagram is there's clips of you guys and they're all kind of spliced together. One moment I see like water, and then the next I see forest, and like I'm so jealous that you guys can just pick up and go anywhere at any time. Tell us how this all started for the two of you, that you ended up, this is the lifestyle you chose to do.
Sure. So for me, I worked as a wildland firefighter through most of my 20s. And during that time, I got really used to living out of a duffel bag, living on a truck, and being in some new, beautiful place every couple of weeks. So when I left that job at the end of my 20s, I pretty much immediately had itchy feet and just wanted to be back on the move. And this lifestyle really appealed to me. Right around that time, I met my fiance, Ayana, and she was independently thinking about bus life at the time. So, pretty recklessly fast, about 3 months into our relationship, we ended up buying the bus and starting converting it together. But it's been going great.
All right, so those people that are listening to us, AJ, tell us about the bus. How big is this thing you guys have? Are we talking like a full-length school bus? Are we talking one of the smaller? Can you give us some perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So our bus it's 22 feet long. It's a short bus, van front, 2001. And it was a handicap bus out of Lamar, Texas when we bought it. But now it's a pretty nice little tiny home with about 90 square feet of living space.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your cooking background. Have you always loved cooking and that's kind of been a thing for you, or are you adapting to your space and trying to come up with great meal ideas in a limited space?
It's definitely a little bit of both.
Okay.
I grew up in a family where cooking was really important. Food was really important. My dad cooked a lot. He's of French descent, so cooking was really important in his family, and he really instilled that in all of his boys. My older brothers worked in restaurants, so they were always cooking. And pretty much from the age that I was tall enough to reach the stovetop, I've been learning. That said, I've never, I didn't go to culinary school. I've never worked in a kitchen. It's all just been passion and reading a lot of textbooks, trying a lot of dishes while traveling, and doing my best to bring all of that home.
Hey, so what is your current setup for your kitchen as far as cooking? What do you guys have? What are you using? Just to give us some context as well.
Sure. Yeah. So it's, as I mentioned, it's 90 square feet in here. There's not a lot of space for any of that. All we have is a little 3-burner propane cooktop. and about 1 square foot of counter space. And then there's a dining room table that can double as a little bit of extra counter space, but it's pretty basic. So we've had to figure out a lot of recipes that work in that space, and also tricks and hacks like baking on the stovetop.
And on top of that is food storage as well, right? You don't have like a big, huge monster fridge and freezer and all that stuff. You got to find a place to store all this food as well. So, what do you have for food storage?
Yeah, so we've got a little 70-liter mini fridge. It's about the size of your standard dorm mini fridge,
Wow.
but it's 12-volt DC, so it's a little bit more efficient than one of those.
Yeah.
And then we've got a pretty large pantry. My partner Ayana is very kind in how much of our living space she lets me take over with food and cooking equipment.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so wow. So not only prep space, it's a storage thing. There's a lot of stuff that you have to navigate for cooking. You don't have an oven then, right? It's all stovetop?
Yeah, all stovetop baking. It
Wow.
was definitely we would have loved to have put an oven in, but there just wasn't space for it in our build. And so I really, as soon as we made that decision, I decided I was going to teach myself how to bake on the stovetop, and we really developed a method that's been pretty successful.
Okay, so when did the Buslife Kitchen cookbook come out?
Buslife Kitchen Cookbook came out July of 2022, so it's been close to a year now.
Amazing. So where has the book gone? Do you have any countries or any places you're like, I can't believe my book is here in this part of the world now?
Yeah, it's really all over. So I funded the book with Kickstarter, so that was a really successful fundraising campaign, which found a lot of people in a lot of different countries. And at this point, I don't have an exact number of countries, but it's, I think, upwards of 15 different countries now
Nice.
are hard copies of the book, which
Wow.
is pretty cool.
Okay, so I got to ask, where do you have copies of the books with you as you travel? Because where are you going to put those?
We do. So thankfully, my brother lives in Denver, and he was willing to store all of the hard copies in his garage for us.
Nice.
Every time we pop back into town, we grab a few hundred more copies and fill up.
Wow. Okay, so who would benefit the most from this book, AJ? Who is this perfect for?
It's, I think, really perfect for travelers in general.
Yes.
People who like to try new foods. It's a lot of different cuisines in there. So people who like traveling in their actual life, people who prefer to travel just in their kitchen. And, it is obviously also directed at the van life, bus life, RV, camping communities. But, anybody with a tiny kitchen or a regular sized kitchen, I think, can benefit from it and learn some new foods and some new techniques.
Amazing. Okay, what's one recipe you tried that just did not translate in a small space and you're like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I just can't figure out a way to cook this? What is it?
We have trouble with just about anything that requires a frozen ingredient. We don't really have a
Hmm.
proper freezer. So unless we're parked outside of the Walmart at the time and can go in and buy frozen berries or ice cream, those things are pretty much all off the table. And, baking was a challenge. I think at this point we have it figured out, but there was a lot of mistakes made along the way.
Nice. So give us some highlights from the cookbook. What are some of the things that we're going to find in there? Is it like all the different meals of the day? Is it kind of focused on one certain meal?
I tried to hit all the bases and make dishes for, simple weeknight meals, and also for, fancy holiday feasts. But there is a tendency toward the gourmet, I would say. It's focused on a little bit fancier food, but still all stuff that you can do pretty simply. Every recipe fits on a single page, so it can't be too complicated if
Yeah.
that's the case. But beyond that, it's 105 recipes from about 15 different cuisines from all over the world. So, there's Vietnamese food, Thai food, Costa
Nice.
Rican food, French food. It's all sorts of things.
Beautiful. And then what's the average serving size then? Is it for two people, one person? How does it translate?
Most recipes are for 2 to 4, depending
Okay.
on hunger. What I
Yeah.
generally say, because it's tough to know how much people eat individually.
Yeah. Wow. So this would be also perfect. We talked about before hitting record. This would be great for somebody living in a tiny apartment. Maybe they don't have an oven, they don't have a freezer, they only have what they have. This might be a book that goes beyond the nomadic lifestyle and bus life and can also help people in small settings like that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think what I tell people generally is, if you live in a small space with a small kitchen, it's perfect. And if you live in a space with a larger kitchen, all the recipes are just a little bit easier. You have a little bit more space.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a
Amazing.
proper oven.
Amazing. Talk about a little bit about your van life as well. Like how far do you guys travel in any given year? Give us some perspective. How much windshield time you have driving around?
Yeah, it's varied a lot through our time in the bus. We've been on the road for about 2.5 years now,
Yeah.
and in our ideal schedule, we find someplace nice. We go out and we boondock for 10 to 14 days. And then when the food's low and we're out of water, we go into town, resupply, and drive, maybe 2, 3 hours down the road to the next spot. So we like a pretty slow pace of travel, but that's not always possible. We actually traveled with a circus for a year while we were on the road.
Wait, you travel with a circus. Okay, I got to know more about this.
Yeah,
Wow.
my fiance Anna was a nanny before we lived in the bus, and she got a job nannying for the Venardos Circus, traveling around the country. So they move at a much faster pace, and we followed them down to Florida and then all the way up to Tacoma, Washington.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's pretty interesting. So you do get to see a lot of the world then. What really attracts you to van life and living this lifestyle? I'm really curious and a little jealous, I gotta say, because I just love the idea of just going somewhere, flipping open the map and just saying, let's go here and just go see what it's like. What's so attractive for you about this?
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head right there. I think just being able to explore all these places that we've wondered about is definitely one of the biggest draws, filling in that map in our minds. But beyond that, I think the simplicity of life is really what keeps us in this. When you own so little stuff and your bills are so small every month,
Right.
it's really easy to spend your time doing the things that you're passionate about, like writing
Nice.
a cookbook,
Nice. I love that. That makes so much sense to not have to live under the weight of all the items you own and be a slave to your possessions, all that stuff, right? That's something that's really catching my ear right now. So thank you, AJ, for that. Um, this is really cool. Talk a little bit about cabin fever. What happens for the two of you and the dog? You guys are in this thing. It's raining for 3 weeks, and you're stuck inside. What do you guys do to break the cabin fever? It's got to be some secret here.
I wish that we had a secret. I think I think that's maybe just a curse of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
We've you know, we probably wouldn't stay 3 weeks. We'd drive to greener pastures,
Yeah.
but we've definitely been caught a number of times in a week or so of gray days or high winds or something that keeps us stuck in the bus, the two of us and the dog in this tiny little space. And it frays our nerves a little bit.
So I've been watching the videos of you guys out on the road, and behind your shoulder there, I see the wood stove
Yeah.
and bananas. So, how big is this wood stove? And this is fully functional, I believe, right?
It is, yeah. It's pretty tiny. I think it's maybe about a cubic foot, but it's rated for around 200 square feet, which is twice what we've got. And when we really burn it, it is we got to open the windows. It's too
Wow,
much. But
that's
it's really fun. In the winter when it's cold out, having a little fire. There's nothing that beats that.
that is amazing. I love it. So, did you guys do all the designs for your unit together? How did you come up with all the plans for all this?
Yeah, we that was definitely as I mentioned before, we've been together for about 3 months when we bought this, so it's still a fledgling relationship, and I think we worked through a lot of long term things very quickly, trying to design our dream home inside this tiny little space. So yeah, we did all the design together. We did all most of the work together. We hired somebody with a little bit more expertise to help us with
Yeah,
some cabinetry, but
it's
yeah,
amazing.
figuring out all the things that were important was definitely a lot of compromising.
Okay. So jumping back to the cookbook then, AJ, what is something out of that cookbook that is your go-to if you're going to plan dinner tonight and you have everything you need? What is probably the one thing that you're like, I just got to make this again? It's my favorite thing in the book. What is it?
I I would say that the plate lunch from the Hawaiian section is my go-to for feeding people
Okay.
because not everybody's had a chance to try a lot of Hawaiian food in their life, and the huli huli chicken and the Hawaiian mac salad are just both huge crowd pleasers. I don't think anybody's ever upset about eating those.
Mm, nice.
Yeah.
So do you have any Canadian food on the menu at all?
I don't know much about Canadian food beyond
There you
poutine.
go. Yeah, we don't know much about Canadian food in Canada either, so you're fine there. Yeah, but would love to have you guys come to Canada sometime and show off your cooking skills and see the your unit there as well. That's amazing. I'm kind of I keep saying it. I'm jealous because I just think this is such a cool way to experience life. And the one thing I was when doing my research on you too, AJ, was before before going through this and writing the book, you traveled around and I guess kind of got bit by that traveling bug and living out of a small area by fighting forest fires and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that? That's really interesting to me as well.
Yeah, that was you know, so I grew up in a very swampy part of southeastern Virginia and lived there until I was about 22 years old. And honestly, during that time, I'm not sure that I knew that wildfires were a real thing. Just didn't really exist in my mind. And then I moved out to Oregon after college, got my first job out there, which is where I first laid eyes on an actual wildfire in the landscape. And it just absolutely blew me away. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. It wasn't a real ripper or anything. It was just a little grass fire on the side of the highway, right at sunset. So it was really beautiful too. And I decided right then and there that I needed to learn more about that. So I went home that night, started applying for jobs, and a week later, I had a job as a firefighter. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and that excitement around it never really passed. It's just fire as a force of nature is such an incredible thing, and really the only way to get to see fire in action is to be a firefighter. So I loved that time, and a lot of it is really really hard work as
Yeah.
well. But you get to be in some really incredible places and see just some really incredibly beautiful and awe-inspiring things.
That's amazing too. Like I would think you'd be out on the road for a while then. You don't it's not like you go to work 9 to 5, punch out and go home. You're kind of in it, right? So how long would you be in one certain area before you would move on?
So generally, it's a 2 or 3 week assignment.
Wow.
You work, up to 16 hours a day during that time. So my entire career, I was a seasonal worker, so I only got 6 months out of the year. But my last season, in those 6 months, I worked 1,100 hours of overtime. It's a lot.
Holy cow. 1,100 hours. Oh gosh. Okay, so wow. So you guys are very safe with your fires, with the wood stove behind you, with all your background. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Um, any other tips for somebody who that are thinking about following your lead and saying, you know what, I'm getting bit by the bug here. I want to do this. Anything about like initial plans on living like this nomadic lifestyle and bus life? Anything you would suggest to people that you've learned over the years that would be helpful to somebody new?
I think try it first is maybe the top advice. I think that there are a lot of people for whom it sounds really romantic,
Right.
and it can be, and it is often, but it is also really difficult. Um, when you move into a little space like this and you have to be really careful with all your resources all the time, it's just a lot to think about. And pretty much everything that you do in life is a little bit more difficult than it is in a more typical modern life. So I would say, rent a camper van or just try going on, a 2 week road trip, tent camping out of your rig. And if after that you're still really stoked on it, then I think the only advice is to read a lot and go for it.
Amazing. Any idea around cost to set up something similar to what you guys have? Is it really, really expensive after you purchase the vehicle to transform it?
It varies a ton based on how luxurious you want it to be.
Yeah.
The higher end Sprinter vans often go for upwards of $200,000. Our We got this short bus for less than $5,000, and then we ended up putting around 20,000 into the build, all told. Some of that being labor. So we're definitely on the cheaper end, but there are people who do it for under $10,000.
Wow. Okay. It gives them some context as well. That's good. And then as far as the cookbook, you mentioned it's available through Amazon, but also through your website, so people can buy it directly from you. And I think you said you'll deliver it. No, wait, that's not right. Because you do have transportation. But no, the best way, if you're in the US for sure, is to buy it directly through the website, and you guys will make a little bit more, hopefully, from that. But it's available on Amazon as well. Tell me about some of the reviews you've heard back, some of the comments on the book.
It's been just pretty overwhelmingly positive. I don't think I've had a negative review yet, which is a wonderful thing. People seem to love it. It's been really popular at all the van life and bus life meetups that we've been to. And yeah.
Awesome. What about for people that are new to van life and bus life? What kind of communities are out there for them to be a part of and to join in? Any recommendations?
Yeah. So we hit the road during, pre-vaccine COVID times. It was October 2020.
Wow.
So the first chunk of time that we were on the road, we really didn't meet anybody. We were keeping to ourselves, staying out in wild country. And then immediately after that, we joined up with the circus for a year. So it really wasn't until last summer that we got to start participating in these nomadic communities. But it is a really wonderful and special community. I'd say the best way to get to know people is to go to one of the meetups. We went to Descend on Bend last year and Northwest Nomads, and then Schoolie Palooza in January of this year. And each one has its own flavor, but you see a lot of the same folks at the different meetups, and there are hundreds of rigs at every one, lots and lots of people, and I haven't had a bad experience yet. Everybody's super friendly, very generous.
Awesome. It's amazing. Okay, so this cookbook would be a great gift as well to buy for yourself, but to give. Let's hear the pitch, AJ. What would you say to somebody that's looking for a great cookbook for small spaces? This is your commercial time. What would you say to them? How can we promote the book? Give us that overview so we can share this with our friends.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think this book is for people who like to try new things, who like adventure. There's a lot of new foods, some of which you'll recognize from, takeout menus, but maybe you've never made for yourself. And it's all suitable for a really simple 2-burner stove setup. So it's great for camping. It's great for, cooking at home. It's great for an RV. There's a lot of good food in there. And I think that there's something for everybody and every occasion. On top of that, we have stories about our time on the road, converting the bus. There's a picture for every recipe, which I know a lot of people really enjoy. I think it's a really beautiful book, and I think just about everybody enjoys it.
Amazing. And people can follow along on the journey through your social media. Instagram, is that probably the most active place for you guys?
Yeah, we're most active on Instagram. It's the.buslife.kitchen.
Beautiful. And then the website, where do we go?
Thebuslifekitchen.com.
See, you got this all figured out. And for those that are not seeing this, the book is just on camera there. AJ's got the shirt on. He's rocking it all. He knows exactly what he's doing. So this is going to be a great cookbook to share, everyone. Do you even have like a s'mores recipe for like outside cooking s'mores at the fire?
I don't have a s'mores
Well,
recipe.
it's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
So here you go. Awesome. AJ, thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast. And again, first time I've ever had a cookbook author on, and I hope it's not the last. And I'm really, really excited, and I'm going to be loving and sharing your stuff online as well, so people can follow the journey. So thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Really appreciate you being here and being part of our podcast community. livingthenextchapter.com is our website. I have an offer for you as an author, if you're listening, and you're wanting to build your website for your book. I've had so many authors come on and they're struggling in this area. I'd love to help you. All of the websites that I built for my different podcasts, I have experience, and I'd love to help you and get you up and running. I can help you with your domain purchase. I can help you with setting up your podcast, making it really simple. And if you love Canva, we can even set it up on Canva for you, and you can do all your own maintenance. You don't need to hire anybody. We'll help you get set up. So if that interests you as an author and you want a website for your book, let me know. We can do this. I can help you. livingthenextchapter.com is the website for the podcast. You can find me there. I'd love to help you. Reach out. Let me know if I can be of assistance in any way. And thank you again for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Today is where your book begins. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.